Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bluddworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's video is going to be my first read-through of Role-Playing Mastery by Gary Gygax. The reason why I wanted to do this is that over the last couple of weeks, I've been seeing a lot of discussion around role playing and different forms of role playing, and if you can have true role playing in a solo RPG. Do you have true role playing if you're not playing in person, or if you're if you're playing over the internet, or if you're theater of the mind, or using miniatures and such. So this has really been going on back and forth now for a couple of weeks. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to take a look at what Gary Gygax believed was the mastery of role playing. So how do you attain mastery, and in the very beginning, what is mastery? So I wanted to take a look at that. And as I started going through this very first chapter of it, and I'm going to do that read through with you now, I came across a couple of his points that really stood out to me as being something that I wasn't thinking of before. I didn't consider it, and so finally getting around to actually digging through this book. So it took me a while to get it, and although I spent a lot less on this than I did the Game Masters, Mastery of Game Mastering. It was still kind of hard to get, but they are out there, and certainly well worth having it as part of your tabletop role-playing library if you're really want to get down to what the founding fathers of the hobby really thought about the gameplay in general, and how it's supposed to work from both the game master's perspective and the game player's perspective. So without further ado, let's get right into the book. So here we have it. I'm fortunate enough to have a PDF version of it, and which I just stripped off the internet from somewhere. So as I've said previously, I always try to get the hard copy. Once I have the hard copy, I don't have any issues with finding a copy of it online. So this is actually written before Gary was no longer allowed to use like Dungeon Master or all of those things. So this book was still produced while he was with TSR, even though the copyright date might indicate it was like right on the edge of before he departed from TSR. So 1987 is this book, and this was the first book in the series. So role-playing mastery came first, followed by game mastery. I'm not going to spend too much time with the very beginning here, but he does give some acknowledgments to Frank Metzner and Ernie Gygax for their assistance in putting this book to form, along with Kim Mohan and others, Will Nibling and such. So the contents, we're just going to focus on what is mastery to get a start of it, and then I will start going through chapter by chapter until I think you have the true core of what his understanding is. I'm not going to go page by page through the entire 170 some odd pages. So, excuse me. So what is mastery? Why read a book on role-playing mastery? If you have spent hundreds of hours involved in role-playing games, you might think You are a master already. Well, you are no doubt good at what you do and having fun at it, or you wouldn't still be doing it. But unless you are part of a small active minority, you have far more to learn than you imagine. In fact, even if you are already one of the so-called hardcore aficionados, many tricks remain to be learned, and the information that this book contains will be helpful. It is hoped, and I go so far as to assume that interested but non-experienced individuals will read this work prior to beginning activity in role-playing games. This will save them from the fate that has befallen so many of their fellows in the past and turned them from role-playing games participants into uninterested parties in the space of a few frustrating and/or boring sessions of play. The greatest enemy is improper use of the game vehicle for some purpose other than its intended one. Many games are mere pastime activities, but RPGs are enjoyable pursuits of a sought-after nature and are hobby-like rather than pastime creations aimed at filling an otherwise empty period of leisure. And many people will argue this, that this is not just a pastime. We're not just playing a game. That there's much more that goes into it. If I were to compare this to playing chess, you sit down, you play chess. You might play chess for, let's say a 40-minute game is probably like my average kind of a game going, whether I'm winning or losing. And I'm not, as soon as the game session ends, as soon as I'm done playing and there's a winner or a loser, I'm not contemplating or planning my next game. I'm not thinking about it for an entire week. There isn't, the writing and the dedication going into it. Even as a player, I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, well, what is my pawn going to do the next time that we go? It's just a totally different gaming experience. Even though it is a role-playing game, the game portion of it is so dramatically different that you really can't put it into the same context of this is just a pass-time kind of recreational vehicle. While some games are aimed at a rainy afternoons or social gatherings that might bring boredom, role-playing games are designed for and should be played under far different circumstances, which I kind of just went through. Participants engage in play for such games because they have an active desire to do so. This is because the games of this nature provide them with fun, excitement, challenge, social interaction, and much, much more on an ongoing basis. And I think that ongoing basis means that you're thinking about the next session. I want to just skip ahead a little bit and get to some of the terms that he used that really struck out to me. Because he's still going on about enthusiasm and, mastery as a player or a game master can be achieved by anyone despite his or her present level of expertise in or enthusiasm of role-playing games. So it basically says anyone can become a master player or a master game master. It just takes, it takes time and experience, and you don't have to start with that. You can start at zero and work your way up to it. The road to mastery is neither smooth nor short, and a lot of the work lies ahead of anyone setting out on this journey. As it is with other kinds of mature amusements and diversions, so it is with role-playing games. The higher the level of play, the more enjoyable the game. Simply put, mastery of role-playing is not so much an effort towards individual excellence as it is a broadening of personal knowledge, contributing to a social group activity, and increasing the fun and excitement that stem from superior participation. So that's the first time we're hearing, superior participation. It's really hard to be a game master unless you have players that are really good at what they're doing. And it's hard to be a superior player in a group of inferior players, so it's going to be that's a real heavy lift when you're the only player that's really dedicated to what you're doing during that game session. And if you have to drag everyone else along with you, you're always the one making the decisions. You're always, not only is it going to deplete your fun, because you're going to feel more like, oh, I'm doing all the heavy lifting, I'm working hard here, and no one else is really engaging with it. But they're not learning anything either from that if they're not stepping up and being a superior participant as well. So, it becomes much easier to master playing as a role player when you're surrounded by other players of a similar disposition towards participation. This is when role-playing becomes captivating. When you master role-playing, you become immersed in an activity that is peerless among leisure time pursuits. And there's that word immersion, which a lot of people, have also been a real back and forth over, what is immersion? How do you get there? What are some tools that you can use to create a more immersive gaming environment, and so on. Is it magic that strikes your fancy, a fiery breath of a dragon, or perhaps you are captivated by blazing six guns, the tension of an espionage mission, or the lure of a far-flung galaxies of the future? Whatever the attraction is, surviving in the aftermath of the world-shattering Holocaust, or tracking down the innumerable horrors that lurk in the dark and remote places you can find within the realm of role-playing games. The entire spectrum of thrilling action and excitement is available in the comfort of your home. Better still, the adventure is shared and actively so. You are not engaging in parallel entertainment such as watching a film with friends. You are not alone reading a book or contesting against a computer program. A role-playing game is a group interactive activity and the ticket to the worlds of adventure for you and your friends. The purpose of this book is to inform The purpose of this book is to inform role game enthusiasts of the history and scope of the role-playing hobby, pursuit to assist all participants in understanding the game's campaigns, dynamics involved, and to inform participants of the methods of bringing play to a high level in order to enhance their enjoyment. Collaterally, the work is aimed at strengthening and building the hobby by enabling players and game masters alike to assist in this undertaking. The book is then both a guide to better role-playing and a rough map of the territory that encompasses creating new approaches to existing games and design development of new entries in the field. From the ranks of those who achieve role-playing mastery, in the months and the years ahead will come the next generation of game designers and authors who will use their RPG experience and their own original ideas to create new crop of role-playing game systems. Others who achieve mastery will accomplish nothing more than giving themselves and their friends hour upon hour, perhaps a lifetime's worth of unique brand of enjoyment and excitement the results when an RPG is played the way it was meant to be played. That in itself is a prize that makes the long road to mastery well worth traveling. By picking up this book, you have taken the first step on that journey. All right, so he really does begin laying it out and saying that, these are the type of attitudes that you have to bring to the table in order to take your first steps towards mastery. And he's making one slight differentiation here that he didn't in the mastering game mastery. He in that book he stated that the ultimate goal was to become a creator, to become a writer of new content. Here, he's saying that you can achieve mastery by doing that for certain, and making your own games in the future. But also that if you do stay just within your own gaming experience without actually publishing yourself, that is still a level of mastery. So that's a difference that he makes between this book and the next. And I'm wondering if, at some point his attitude towards that has changed, or maybe he just sees the role of a game master compared to the role of a master role player as being, two different things, where the game master is more so the writer and creator, and the role player is the very active and immersed participant. But chapter 1, which I'll save for the next video. So like I said, I'm going to keep on tailoring these in, and dropping them in just to give you a quick start off. And he goes into here in chapter 1, which I'm going to really, really break down into smaller pieces, because he goes into the foundation of the gaming industry and where it starts, and how each party influenced themselves, each other. And I don't want to get into that. I just want to get into where he talks about the actual art of role playing and participation in the gaming itself, and not the history of where the games came about. So I am going to save chapter 1 for its own video, and I'm just going to come back here and change views again. So, yeah, I hope that you just consider this as a primer for the videos that are going to be coming up, and I will go through step by step. Now, if you already have this book and you want to read through chapter 1 and just be prepared to listen to this video, the next video, and then come at me with some questions, or point out a few things where we might have a disagreement, I really welcome that. I'd really like to have a robust discussion about Gary Gygax's views, and then my interpretations of them, and potentially your interpretations of them, and and have a really good discussion of what this book has to offer, and Gary Gygax's ideas about the mastery of role playing. And I'm really looking forward to digging deeper into this. I know, as I said, I went ahead and I read through chapter 1 as well, and started breaking down some of his ideas so that I could speak to them. So this is not as unscripted and unchained as normal, because I don't want to just kind of step over anything or miss anything of that would normally resonate with me as being very important to talk about, and certainly for you as well. So be prepared for the next video, chapter 1, if you do have this book, and I welcome your questions or your comments based on the way I interpret it as well. So Once again, thanks for joining. I hope you liked this video. I'm going to have several videos coming up this weekend, and I'll post them out, spread them out throughout the next couple of days. I've been kind of falling behind in videos, so I really appreciate those of you that have been hanging on. And I know I dropped off these last couple of weeks with like one video per week, and I really want to get back to doing the 2 or 3 videos every week. Just to pick up that pace again. I kind of fell into like a rut, and really busy at work, and still running my campaign, my AD&D First Edition campaign, and really dedicated to that. And plus content, I had a whole bunch of content come in, and it really slowed me down trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do next and what I'm going to show off. And I've been talking about doing this book series for a little while now, so I wanted to get this first one launched off. And the next one will come up in probably a couple of days. So once again, thanks for joining, and have a great afternoon.